This is Radio Japan, NHK World Network Tokyo. It's 9 hours in Japan time, midnight UTC. I'm Takahito Kobayashi with the news. And the headlines: Prime Minister Takahito says his government is determined to achieve 0.5% economic growth in fiscal 1999. Iranian Foreign Minister Kobayashi has said that his country wants to seek a political solution to the Iraqi crisis. And Japan's foreign ministry says that many countries have become increasingly wary of North Korea because of the recent developments in that country. Now the main news in detail. Prime Minister Takahito says his government is determined to achieve 0.5% economic growth in fiscal 1999. Speaking at the meeting of K-Danren, the Japan Federation of Economic Organizations, on Tuesday, Mr. Obuchi stressed three pillars of his government's new economic stimulus package. Mr. Obuchi said those are revitalizing the nation's financial systems, including the easing of the credit crunch, boosting the domestic demand by permanent tax reductions and other measures, and restructuring economic systems, which would mean creating new businesses. Mr. Obuchi said he believes that these measures will begin to help the economy next year. He said he is determined to rescue Japan's economy from 2 straight years of negative growth. Iranian Foreign Minister Kobayashi has said that his country wants to seek a political solution to the Iraqi crisis. Mr. Halazi, who is on a 4-day official visit to Japan, was speaking at a news conference in Tokyo on Tuesday. Mr. Halazi said that the public opinion in Muslim countries is against last week's U.S.-British airstrikes against Iraq. The Iranian Foreign Minister said that his country will be in contact with officials in Iraq and other related countries to try to find a political solution to the crisis. Prime Minister Obuchi has expressed a concern about Iran's development and deployment of missiles and its transfer of related material and technology to North Korea. Mr. Obuchi made the remarks when he met Iranian Foreign Minister Kobayashi in Tokyo on Tuesday. About 100 UN relief staff returned to Baghdad on Tuesday night to resume work disrupted by the U.S. and British airstrikes against Iraq. 3 buses and several cars carrying the workers arrived in Baghdad after a 900-kilometer drive from the Jordanian capital, Amman. The UN staff left Baghdad for Jordan last Friday during the attacks. UN humanitarian staff have been overseeing the distribution of food and medicine bought under Iraq's oil for food deal, which is aimed at offsetting the worst effects of the 8-year-old economic sanctions. Meanwhile, a Russian foreign ministry spokesman has said that the Russian ambassador to the United States will return to Washington as early as Wednesday. Ambassador Yuri Bolontsov was recalled to Moscow on Friday to protest the U.S.-British airstrikes against Iraq. In a news conference on Tuesday, the spokesman also indicated that the Russian ambassador to Britain will return to London after being recalled over the Iraqi crisis. Earlier on Tuesday, the Iraqi army says that Western military planes fired missiles in southern Iraq, but the United States and Britain have denied the reports. The Iraq news agency quoted a military spokesman as saying that the aircraft first entered Iraqi airspace north of Basra in the morning, before returning in the afternoon and firing 2 missiles. Reuters news agency quoted a U.S. Defense Department spokesman as saying that the U.S. planes have not fired any missiles in Iraq. A British Defense Ministry spokesman told an NHK correspondent that no British military aircraft flew over Iraq on Tuesday. U.S. and British planes patrol a no-fly zone in southern Iraq to prevent the Iraqi army from threatening the Shiite Muslim population. Japan's foreign ministry says that a number of countries have become increasingly wary of North Korea because of the recent developments in that country. In its annual report on the international situation, the ministry says that North Korea's governing and decision-making mechanisms are still unclear. The report says that North Korean missile launch in August has increased the instability in the East Asian region. It said that Japan, South Korea, and the United States have become more cautious about North Korea because these countries are expected to fall within the target range of North Korean missiles in the near future. The report says that these countries' policies on North Korea have been a mixture of appeasement and tougher attitudes, but next year may be a turning point. Now, here is a frequency notice. You are listening to Radio Japan, broadcasting on 11.705 MHz, being relayed to eastern part of North America via Sackville, Canada. This transmission is also relayed to Europe via Scotland, England on 6.155 and 6.180 MHz, and to Central Africa via Ascension Island in the Atlantic on 9.665 MHz. Listeners in Asia can also hear this transmission until 0:15 hours UTC on 11.815 and 13.650 MHz. Now, other news. The Emperor of Japan celebrates his 65th birthday on Wednesday. In a news conference on Tuesday, the Emperor said that he is deeply concerned about the welfare of Japanese who are suffering from the economic slump. He said he earnestly hopes that the situation will improve next year. The Emperor replied to one question about a videotaped speech that the Empress delivered at the World Congress of the International Board on Books for Young People in September in India. The Emperor said that the Empress had talked about her childhood reading in her own words and appeared on television as she is every day. He said he was surprised to learn that she had so deeply read each book, one volume after another. The Emperor expressed gratitude for the offer made by Chinese President Jiang Zemin during his visit to Japan last month to present a pair of crested ibises to Japan to help its efforts to breed the birds, which are virtually extinct in this country. The financial markets in Tokyo are closed on Wednesday for the Emperor's birthday, a national holiday. A consortium of 4 Japanese oil companies will develop an offshore oil field in the Caspian Sea, together with Azerbaijan's state oil company. The 4 firms are Japan Petroleum Exploration Corporation, Indonesia Petroleum, Itochu Corporation, and Teikoku Oil Company. They will sign a contract at the ceremony on Friday in Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan President Heydar Aliyev will attend. The companies say they plan to set up an office in Baku next year and develop an offshore oil field south of Baku over 25 years. Oil reserves in the contract area are estimated at between 500 million and 1 billion barrels. U.S. and British firms have been competing for exploration rights in the region, which is estimated to have the world's second largest reserves after the Persian Gulf. This will be the first time that Japanese oil firms have contracted to search for oil in this area without alliances with U.S. or European developers. Japan will also open an embassy in Baku. Japan and South Korea have agreed to an exchange program between labor management and government officials that will take place every 2 years. Japanese Labor Minister Akira Amari and South Korean Labor Minister Lee Ki-ho signed a document on bilateral cooperation on labor policies at a meeting in Tokyo on Tuesday. Under the program, Japan and South Korea will take turns exchanging delegations that will include their respective labor ministers as well as representatives of labor and management from each country. The two countries will also set up a forum on labor-related policies when necessary. Mr. Amari told the reporters that he believes the agreement will further boost exchanges between Japan and South Korea. He said his ministry hopes to discuss unemployment and other urgent issues with his South Korean counterparts. Mr. Lee said he hopes to learn from Japan's efforts to tackle unemployment and stabilize labor management relations. Japanese automakers say that domestic production will increase by 2.3% next year. Projections by 5 leading Japanese automakers indicate that a total of 8,065,000 cars will be produced in their domestic factories next year. The 5 makers predict that a total of 4.5 million cars will be sold in Japan next year, an increase of 6.2% from this year. They also predict that a total of 3,650,000 cars will be exported next year, a drop of 3.5% from this year. The decrease is attributed to increased production at Japanese makers' overseas plants and lower exports to other Asian countries. Toyota, Nissan, and Mitsubishi have already announced plans to reduce domestic car production. The U.S. Federal Reserve left key U.S. interest rates unchanged at this year's final policy meeting on Tuesday. The discount rate on emergency loans from the central bank remains steady at 4.5%. The Federal Funds overnight bank lending rate is also unchanged at 4.75%. During the past 3 months, the Federal Reserve cut interest rates 3 times to protect the U.S. economy from a credit crunch. Analysts predict that the U.S. Central Bank will reduce rates next year when it sees clearer signs of a slowdown in the U.S. economy. The Japan Association of Corporate Executives, or Keizai Doyukai, has appointed the chairman of Fuji Xerox Company, Yotaro Kobayashi, as its new chairman. The association made that appointment at the meeting on Tuesday. Mr. Kobayashi, the association's vice chairman since 1993, will replace incumbent chairman Jiro Shio, whose term expires next April. Mr. Kobayashi, who is 65, joined Fuji Photo Film Company in 1958 and transferred to Fuji Xerox. He has been the president of the company since 1978 and the chairman since 1992. Finally, let's take a look at the top stories at this hour. Prime Minister Takahito says his government is determined to achieve 0.5% economic growth in fiscal 1999. Iranian Foreign Minister Kamal Halazi has said that his country wants to seek a political solution to the Iraqi crisis. And Japan's foreign ministry says that many countries have become increasingly wary of North Korea because of the recent developments in that country. And that's the news from Radio Japan. I'm Takahito Kobayashi. Next follows our weekday magazine program, Radio Japan 44 Minutes. So please stay tuned. You are tuned to Radio Japan in